Today, I finished my personal playthrough of this chaotic yet satisfying Minecraft game mode. If you haven't already, feel free to check out my first 2 videos on the server. Otherwise, get your drink of choice and enjoy my farming, mining, and stock of stonks value-ruining playthrough. Welcome to 28 days of Hypixel Skyblock. Day 15 began with a plot cleanup, which was very nice to do with my tree captator. But while I was doing that, I was peer pressured by my chat into blowing the plot to bedrock. Now, if you were a normal person, you wouldn't do that, but I listen to my chat sometimes, so I went and purchased TNT from the Mad Redstone engineer, and then I placed the TNT in a tiny, nice little formation on my garden. Well, until I decided to place the TNT in a slightly more chaotic way using a builder's wand. Eventually, I decided that's enough TNT, I'm just going to blow it up now.
Please note that redstone is currently disabled on this island.
Well, shit. So I decided to go find a flint and steel. So I grabbed a steel, then a flint, and crafted the flint and steel and ignited the TNT. After that, I finally got to farming. First up, I farmed some wheat for croppies as I didn't quite finish the armor yesterday, but then I did a small selection of carrots for a farming contest. When the farming contest ended, I went to farm some melons as well, making my melon armor. I never made melon boots. Now, that sounds kind of stupid, but hear me out. Melon boots are useless, horrible, and quite literally worse in every single way compared to rancher's boots. But I decided I did want them for collection's sake. So I crafted some melon boots and then moved to farm some wheat for a short while. But very quickly switched back to melons for another farming contest. After that I moved to farming some potatoes and farmed those for about 45 minutes, but then I moved to wheat for another farming contest, and then I moved back to potatoes for an equally excessive amount of time, which allowed me to craft my croppy chestplate, the last piece of croppy armor I needed. I then moved to farming some wheat and did that until I finished farming for the day. Before I finished playing for the day though, I had to build an AFK pool so people could ever so kindly AFK on my island and farm my social XP so that I could hopefully get the social display. Day 16 began on my garden farming wheat. In fact, actually, that was the first half of this day. Until I switched to farming some melons, and then after about 10 minutes of melons, I farmed some mushrooms, but went back to melons shortly after, and then I went back to wheat yet again. 15 minutes later, and I'm farming carrots for a farming contest. 20 minutes later and 1 silver medal richer, I am back to farming wheat. After another 40 minutes of wheat farming, I go back to melons, only for about 10 minutes though, as I decide to go farm some potatoes. But then I returned back to wheat yet again, and then I did a small amount of pumpkins. With that, I decided to go revisit the campfire cult and set myself on fire yet again to finish the day off. Day 17 began in the Dwarven Mines, where I mined some mithril for a bit of mining XP, and then moved on to mining titanium spawns in the Royal Mines, which finished a mining commission. I then went to the King and received my rewards for the commission, which gave me Heart the Mountain XP, something that was still semi-important, but not really the highest in my priority list. I then made my way to the lava springs and continued titanium mining for another mining commission, which I then handed in to the King yet again. This time I had to mine mithril in the Royal Mines, which I went and did. But once I finished this, I also unlocked a commission milestone tier, which meant there were now emissaries who I could accept my mining commission rewards from. However, I still went to the King because I didn't know where the nearest emissary would actually be. Next up, I had to mine more mithril in the upper mines, which I went and did, and as per usual, I returned to the King. Now, my next task was to mine titanium, so I went and completed that yet again, then I returned to the King. I really don't want to keep doing titanium. So I didn't. I went to the hub and sold everything I gathered while mining, and then I moved to farming. Now, what I didn't show yesterday is that I was plotting with flies. Now, flies give hay bales when killed, and apparently they count for the farming contest. I wanted a gold medal, so surely cheating with 8 flies would be enough to get one. Right. Turns out, no it isn't. I ended up getting dropped all the way down to silver from my strong head start in platinum, which is I think the highest possible farming contest rank you can get. Out of anger, I went to farming melons and then some potatoes, but then I decided to clean up a garden plot, which I planted cocoa beans on. Don't worry, you'll see me farming those soon. After that cleaning session, however, I needed to farm potatoes. Why do I need to farm potatoes, you might ask? Well, here's why. The reason is there is no reason. I just wanted to farm them because I had fun farming potatoes. Sue me. Actually, don't. I then moved to farming wheat for an unbelievably excessive amount of time, and then farmed a small selection of pumpkins, and then also a small amount of melons. Eventually, I returned to the pumpkins, but this time with a 10-minute timer to work out how much money I make per hour, which at this point in time is 4.2 million coins. After working that out, I continued farming pumpkins for a short while and then switched to carrot farming for a little bit. After that, doing a touch of sugarcane, and eventually went full circle back to wheat farming. I had a small melon farming moment, and then finished off the day farming potatoes. Day 18 began with melon farming, and then some pumpkin farming, and then I went to Anita and purchased a cocoa chopper, which I enchanted with Replenish, Sunder 6, and Turbo Cocoa 5. And then I started chopping cocoa. After 20 minutes of cocoa chopping, I moved to farming some pumpkins, then some melons, and then back to pumpkins. While we're here, I should explain. At this point, I was working on the next tier of farming-related armor, which is called squash armor. Believe it or not, I needed squash for this armor, and all of the crops I'd farmed today gave me squash as a rare extra drop. So farming all of these was mostly for squash, but to actually make the armor, I also needed a large amount of each of these crops, so it was kind of a double benefit. Anyways, with that pumpkin farming done, I switched back to melon, but then I switched to cocoa again. For some reason, cocoa ignited a weird primal urge to be the laziest motherfucker in the world, which I loved. So I farmed cocoa a lot. Well, after cocoa, I moved back to melons again, then switched to pumpkins, and then I switched to sugarcane. Then I went back to pumpkins, then back to melons, back to pumpkins, back to melons, and then in a shocking twist, I moved to mushrooms. But only for a farming contest, which, by the end, I finally got a gold medal in. As a victory reward, I farmed wheat to finish the day off. Day 19 is going to be a speedy day, as I full focused making my squash armor, so just a quick warning for that. I began the day farming potatoes, and then switched to cocoa beans for about half an hour, but then went back to potatoes. Then, I farmed some melons, with a small wheat farming break before returning to the melons yet again. Then I moved to pumpkins for a little while, but returned to cocoa beans very soon after. Then I switched back to pumpkins. While farming pumpkins, I had a thought. Hear me out, chat, I changed my language to lolcat and we just pretend it's completely normal. And anyone who questions it, we just don't respond at all. I did exactly that. And after finishing my pumpkin farming, I managed to gather all the resources I needed to make squash armor. After that, I began farming mushrooms in the mushroom cave for a little bit as a small reward for making a full set of squash armor. Plus, I needed mushrooms for the next set of armor, so it's a good starting point. Day 20 was reasonably focused on a task too, as I decided I wanted to get Fermento armor, the best farming related armor in the game. So to begin, I farmed some wheat. Now, this wasn't important for the armor, but I decided to do it anyways, so it's here. Then I farmed some red mushrooms, but with that I decided to clear another garden plot and plant brown mushrooms there. Or that's what I would say if I didn't accidentally leave red mushrooms in my inventory, so it acted as a mixed mushroom plot instead. So I cleared all of those out and then farmed some sugarcane while waiting for the mushrooms to grow. When the brown mushrooms grew, I decided to farm them. Now, this stream became a lot of brown mushroom farming as it was one of the key components to making the armor, but I did take a small break to farm some pumpkins, then I went back to the mushrooms, then took another break to farm some melons, and then went back to the mushrooms, and then I farmed some sugarcane. but I went back to the mushrooms yet again. Now, some people would say I'm addicted to farming brown mushrooms, and to those people I say shut the fuck up. Anyways, I finished the day off farming wheat. Day 21 began farming sugarcane, then I switched to red mushrooms, and then I tried cactus. But I hated it, so I'm never doing that again. Next up, I farmed some pumpkins, then went back to red mushrooms, then back to pumpkins, then back to red mushrooms. After that, I returned the redstone 11 minions to the viewer who loaned me them, and I leveled up my personal compactors using enchanted redstone because I finally got the redstone collection I needed. With my new compactors, I went back to farming mushrooms, as I needed farming level 40 to be able to use Fermento armor. Now, there's another slightly fun, totally not gambling way to get farming XP, which is Jerry boxes. So, I bought a few from the bazaar, and I got literally only coins. So I bought some more, and got even more coins. I cut my losses at that point, and returned to mushroom farming. But eventually, I switched to pumpkins, then did a touch of sugarcane farming, then returned to red mushrooms again. Now, if you've paid attention, you've probably noticed that I like farming mushrooms. That's because it gives me the most EXP per crop versus any other. But I do also get bored very quickly of running back and forth farming mushrooms. Speaking of getting bored, how about we go to a dark auction and spend 20 minutes trying to spend money that I want to spend, but everything is so overpriced that I am never going to be able to buy anything. What the fuck? With that economics-related mental breakdown over, I returned to farming brown mushrooms, and then switched to farming some red mushrooms, but eventually moved on to wheat farming. I then returned to red mushrooms, then melons, back to red mushrooms, back to wheat, back to melons, and finished the day off with red mushrooms. Day 22 is even more task-focused. I farmed mushrooms. No, that's not a joke. I literally did that all day. But at the very end, I crafted my Fermento armor, so that's a positive, right? I now have a full set of Fermento gear. Full Fermento. On day 23, I decided to visit the Dwarven Mines again. First, I completed the Puzzler's task. It's honestly not hard to understand. Follow the arrows from the puzzler's exact position, and you get a free 1000 mithril powder. Next up, I went to the upper mines to complete a titanium mining commission. I then went to the glaciate wall to murder some glaciate walkers, and after that I went to the king to go hand my commission in. And my new commission was to murder glaciate walkers, so I went back to the glaciate wall and murdered even more. With 100 more murders on my criminal record, I went back to the king, and now I had to mine titanium in the cliffside veins. Again, I returned to the king and collected my rewards. Although in-game chat might have been mildly upset at my armor choice, as I was mining in the Fermento armor I got yesterday. I went and completed yet another commission, returned to the king, but I'd had enough of mining. So, I went to shovel sand. No, that's not a joke, I did that for about 20 minutes. The only reason I was mining today is because one of the farming reforges, Burrowing Spores, needed mining level 25, so I thought sand would be a quick way to level up my mining levels. Turns out, it really wasn't. So I went back to completing Dwarven Mines commissions, but I decided to go to my garden and farm for a little bit after a couple of more commissions. First up, I farmed some wheat, then some sugarcane, then even more wheat, then a small selection of carrots before I decided to clear another garden plot and plant netherwort on it. While waiting for netherwort to grow, I farmed some wheat, and when it grew, I farmed it in the most efficient way imaginable, as all Skyblock players will tell you. Anyways, I'm never farming netherwort again, and instead I decided to farm carrots, then some more brown mushrooms, and then, to finish the day off, I farmed some pumpkins. On day 24, I fished. No, that's not a joke, I literally spent the entire day fishing. But before we skip over the entire day, let's quickly go through one thing that was quite funny that happened. Well, I fished up an Agaramu at one point. I'm struggling with this thing, I don't have the weapon for this. Where's my Aurora staff? Help! Friends, help! Please, please. Randoms, help me, please. I don't have the weapon. I realise that. Where'd my weapon go? I then went and purchased a legendary dolphin pet and a farmer's rod, and a rod of champions from the auction house. Beyond that, however, I didn't have much happen while fishing, so let's move on to day 25. On day 25, I mined. A lot. I began by going to the king to see my commissions, and then I went to the puzzler to go complete their task. After that, I actually began mining. And I did that for literally the entire day. Up until I took part in a raffle, which I won absolutely nothing from yet again. And then I returned to doing dwarven commissions and finished the day off. Day 26 continued my mining ways, only for a short while though, as I decided to go visit the fishing festival that began while I was mining, and I got loot share from someone who summoned a great white shark. After that, I went and completed too many commissions. And then I did the puzzler's task, 2 more mining commissions, and then I finished the day off fishing. Day 27 finally had a change of pace from mining. Farming. Now, today was the day that the Stock of Stonks auction happened for the first time, an item which had previously been made unobtainable in the game, and it was extremely sought after. Although, you'll see that very soon, maybe that wasn't the best thing to happen. Anyways, back to farming. To begin the day off, I farmed some red mushrooms, then a small patch of pumpkins, then some wheat, and afterwards a portion of melons. With that, I went to the dwarven mines and quickly completed the puzzler's request, as I wanted to collect some mithril powder at least today. I then also did a tiny bit of mining, but returned to farming melons shortly after, don't worry. After melons, I moved to wheat, and then after the wheat, I farmed some carrots. I then returned to red mushrooms, but very quickly moved back to melons, back to wheat, and then to brown mushrooms instead of red. With those brown mushrooms farmed, I made a small platform on my island, and placed an experimentation table, which opens a little minigame that lets you earn enchanting EXP and also some enchanted books. But to save you some time, because my memory is horrible and I did it 3 times in a row for some reason, I'm gonna skip past it. After experimenting for a little bit, I farmed some wheat, then some melons, and then the auction started. I immediately pushed my bid up to 13.2 million coins, which was most of the money I had at the time, and absolutely was a dumb idea. And as soon as I realized that, I quickly tried to farm melons to make even more money to dump into Stock of Stonks. God damn, I sound like an NFT investor. Anyways, alongside that, I farmed some potatoes, and then some pumpkins, some mushrooms but a different color, then some wheat, back for even more pumpkins, then some potatoes, more pumpkins, and then I returned to the auction, finishing the bidding in the top 2,500, spending 30.2 million coins, and then I immediately sold the Stock of Stonks to the bazaar for 25 million, losing over 5 million coins. Well, I decided to go do some art therapy to take my mind off of the excessive amount of money I just lost, and I painted some beautifully crafted mountains, which then got deleted because apparently there's no way to save your artwork yet. Thank you, Marco, for warning me of that in advance. Dickhead. With that, I returned to my garden and farmed some cocoa beans to relieve the excessive amount of anger that I just returned to my bones. Alongside farming some carrots, then some melons, then back to carrots, and then finishing off the day farming wheat. Day 28 began with me purchasing a summoning ring, and going to the Mushroom Desert to try and summon a creature that I could bring to an NPC for him to open a shop selling golden balls. Sadly, however, even with 8 people all joining in trying to fish to summon this specific sea creature, it didn't spawn. So I just purchased the golden balls from the bazaar, and then learned that I needed mining level 30 for them. So I went and did a large amount of mining commissions, but then I got bored so moved to farming reasonably quickly. I began farming potatoes, then switched to wheat, then back to potatoes, and then I finished the day off farming pumpkins.